Welcome to this evening's Planning Committee, Stratford-on-Avon District Council on the 3rd of December. Just before we start, a little bit of housekeeping. As always, there's no planned fire alarm tonight, so if the bell goes, then we do have to leave. We'll go out through reception and meet across the road until it's safe to come back in. So just to let you know, this is a meeting being held in public. It's not a public meeting, okay? So there are a number of people registered to speak. They're the only people that should be speaking. And when their turn comes to speak, I shall call them up to the desk here. I forgot to tell you that my name is Stuart Keithley and I'm chairing the meeting, but I think you can see that from here. So members, so when we're holding the meeting, please speak into the microphone. It's a live recording. People can watch it afterwards as well. So we need to hear what you're saying. And the last thing just to say is there is an update sheet, but there aren't any updates. That's in front of you. So I'll just introduce the top table now. On the right, Kira Keller from Democratic Services. Amy Shipley is our legal advisor this evening. Joe Brooks, our Senior Planning Officer, and presenting tonight is Paul Thompson. So we can now get on to the agenda. So the first thing is apologies for absence, please. Kira. Have I missed something? Yeah, me. Oh, sorry, Joe, yeah. Joe, you've got a statement to explain why you're here.
My role tonight is to provide impartial advice to committee members and to assist members in their decision taking. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. And just to say that, you know, Christmas is coming. There's a lot of things on people's minds at the moment. On to the agenda then. So apologies for absence. Kira, please.
We have apologies from Councillors Adam and Hinter-Serafin.
Okay, thank you. And the second item, disclosures of interest. Do we have any disclosures this evening, please? Looking around the table, none other than myself, just to say that I did go into Tiddington to look at the site in Tiddington from the road so I could see the context of the properties. The next thing is the minutes of the previous meeting that was held on the 22nd of October 2025. Everybody had a chance to look at those minutes. People are happy with those minutes? Yep. Yeah, all those in favour, quick show of hands. Thank you very much. Okay, so now we can get on to the meat of the agenda and the applications. So the first application this evening is application 25002294 PIP, land to the west of Knapton Road in Stockton, a construction of up to 9 dwellings. And our presenting officer, as I said, is Paul Thompson. So, Paul, you've got a presentation for us. When you're ready, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I shall keep it brief. This is a site on the outskirts of Stockton. That is the general area. Nothing really remarkable there. Here we have the site outlined in red. The red buildings are listed, but don't really fall within the setting of the site. It's not what we're looking at anyway, because PIP stands for Permission in Principle. It's best described, I think, as a sort of diet outline permission. So all we can look at this stage is the principle of development. That means the land use and the amount of development, basically, whether it's appropriate for the site. This is an indicative plan, and I must stress indicative. This isn't necessarily what's going to be built, but it's just to give a sense of how 9 dwellings can fit onto the site and how they might be accessed and so forth. All of those remain to be considered at the technical details consent stage, which will happen in an indeterminate period down the line. We can't impose conditions at this stage on a permission in principle. It is just simply a certificate that says this development is acceptable in principle or not, as the case may be. This is what the site looks like from at ground level. It's a paddock. Believe one of the residents is visible just, and that is the new estate opposite, and you can see the 30 limit sign there. And finally, that is the hedge through which the access would be formed as it stands. Again, we're not assessing the access at this stage, just the principle of the access. That is pretty much it, Chair. Over to you.
Okay, thanks very much, Paul. Right, so we have some speakers registered on this item, and the first speaker is Councillor Howard Collison. Is that right? Oh, Councillor Collison. Is that right? Or Mr. Collison, Councillor. Councillor Collison, welcome. Mr. Collison. That's fine, thank you. And you're from Stockton Parish Council? Yes. So thank you very much, Mr. Collison. Thank you for coming along. So I see you've already worked out how to turn the microphone on.
Yep.
So I'm giving you 3 minutes to speak on your objection to this. When you're ready, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members. Stockton Parish Council objects to this development as it would be in contravention of many of the policies in the core strategy, and these are listed in our clerk's response on the planning portal, but they include CS9, CS15, CS16, CS25 and AS10. Briefly, our main objections are that during the current plan period of the core strategy, since 2011, 114 houses have been built in the parish, another 13 have been given approval but not yet built. This takes our community way beyond the level of development that was envisaged in the core strategy. But worse still, no appreciable improvements have been made to the infrastructure that serves the parish, such as water, sewage, electricity, highways, road safety, public transport, school provision, etc. Nor have any other community facilities had any improvements, such as the village hall, the licensed premises, the church, the sports club, etc. There have been no appreciable funds from SIL because most of the development that I've mentioned already was approved before SIL was enacted. The current proposals will only exacerbate the problems that have arisen in our parish. The core strategy also defined the village boundaries, and this development lies outside the built-up area boundary. Stockton Parish Council commissioned a housing needs survey that reported in May 2025. It identified the specific housing needs that are again listed in the clerk's response. The proposed development does not include any affordable housing within the site, but will make an appropriate off-site provision contribution. This does not meet the identified needs in the housing needs survey for more affordable housing in the village. There's been no consultation by the developer with the community to explain the justification for the proposed development or to give villagers an opportunity to voice their concerns. In conclusion, the Parish Council asked the Planning Committee to refuse the proposed development as it contravenes all these policies within the core strategy, represents unsustainable development and does not demonstrate the level of housing need, cannot be supported by the current level of infrastructure. However, the Parish Council is mindful of the current pressures caused by the lack of 5-year housing land supply within the district. And so if the committee are minded to approve this application, we request that there should be some affordable housing provision within the site or elsewhere within the village. We don't want their contribution to disappear off somewhere else. Also, some form of community benefit should be made a condition of permission. Some examples of this include provision of a bus turnaround point that would improve the resilience of the bus service when other routes are blocked, traffic calming measures on the junction with Knapton Road, and improving facilities at the children's playing field in the village.
Okay, thank you. Is that
That's
wrapping
it.
up now? Thank you very much, Councillor Collison.
Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation. Members, do we have any questions for Councillor Collison, please? None at all. Okay. Well, thank you very much for explaining your objections. Thank you. And our next speaker is James Hodgkins. Mr. Hodgkins, yeah. do I understand you're the agent or standing in for the agent, Mr. Hodgkins?
I'm the planning consultant agent, yeah.
Yeah, great, Mr. Hodgkins, thank you very much. Right, okay, so the same for you, if you'd like 3 minutes to help us understand this application. And when you're ready, just start.
Sure. Thank you for your time this evening and for the opportunity to address the Planning Committee. I represent Hub Property Group as their planning consultant and seek your support for the proposed development in line with your officer's recommendation. This application seeks permission in principle for up to 9 dwellings on land at Knapton Road. As you will know, this stage considers only the matters of principle, including location, land use and scale of development. Nevertheless, the application includes an indicative layout demonstrating how the site can sensitively accommodate the proposed development in the future. Turning to the matters of principle, in respect of land use and housing need, the recent Borden Hill appeal confirms that the council has a shortfall of approximately 2,000 dwellings. Accordingly, housing land supply stands at just 2.74 years, well below the 5-year housing land requirement, meaning the core strategy is currently out of date in respect of housing policies. There is an identified and pressing need for homes. Consequently, the presumption in favour of sustainable development applies and a tilted balance should be engaged. In this regard, as the officer's report confirms, the proposals will deliver significant planning benefits and there is no adverse impacts arising from the development that would significantly or demonstrably outweigh these benefits. Rather, the scheme presents a well-considered opportunity to deliver high-quality, sustainable growth in a manner that is sensitive to its context and aligned with the local national planning objectives. In short, there is a pressing need for new homes within the district, and the application proposals will make a modest but meaningful contribution to address this need. In terms of location, the site lies adjacent to the built-up area boundary of Stockton, a Category 2 local service village which is not identified as being suitable for growth. It is well related to existing development within walking distance of key facilities, including a primary school, local shops, recreational facilities and public transport infrastructure. While the site is technically outside the built-up area boundary, its edge of settlement location represents a logical and sustainable opportunity for growth. Regarding scale, the proposed density and layout have been carefully designed to respond to the local character, grain and pattern of the development, similar to Paul's image of the adjacent scheme, and whilst ensuring amenity space, landscaping and biodiversity enhancement can be delivered in the future. The scheme envisages 9 family homes arranged in a cul-de-sac arrangement, respecting the village's character. Homes will be energy efficient and will include renewable technologies. Landscape buffers and planting will enhance the biodiversity and soften the settlement edge, and we expect these to be controlled as part of the technical details consent. Affordable housing will also be secured through a planning obligation at that next stage of works. Overall, the site offers a logical, sustainable and modest expansion of Stockton. It is well related to the existing development, is accessible to local services and is capable of accommodating homes without causing harm to the setting of the village. In short, there is a need for homes and this development will deliver them. As such, I respectfully request the committee to support this application. If there's any questions, I'll be willing to answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hodgkins. Right, members, do you have any questions, Mr. Hodgkins? Yes, Councillor Parry, please.
Hello, good evening. I just wonder whether you can explain to the committee why you opted to go down the PIP route rather than an outline planning route. Was there a specific reason behind that?
Planning Commission in principle and outline are very similar, as you'll be aware. The reason is just for expedience. Ultimately, it's a faster process for us. There's clearly an issue with deliverability across the country, and this gets an opportunity for us to explore the permission in principle and then proceed to that technical detail stage. It's just simply a quicker process for our client.
Councillor Harvey, please.
Thank you. I'm well known for my pedantic dealing with words and so on. I thought you made, from your point of view, you made a reasonable case in support of this application. There is one word you use which really got up my nose, and you described the built-up area boundary as technically outside, the development, proposed development is technically outside the built-up area boundary. My understanding is the built-up area boundary is a line on a map and you're either in it or you're out of it. So why did you use the word technical?
Absolutely, I understand the built-up area boundary is a line that's drawn. The site sits immediately adjacent to it. Obviously, it therefore sits outside of the built-up area boundary. That being said, as our point remains, there's very, very limited land within the built-up area boundary and a need for homes. So the closest you can get to the built-up area boundary is to be contiguous with it.
Would you like to withdraw the word technical?
Please take this as formally removing the word technical.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Anybody else like to ask a question? Any other questions from members? Okay, in which case, Ms Hodgins, thank you very much. Oh, sorry. Councillor Harding, please.
Interesting that you go for 9 dwellings. Why did you go for 9 and not 10?
So if you read our planning statement that supports the application, it discusses the density and the garden space figures to meet your your design guide policy. So the scheme is designed to ensure you can deliver biodiversity net gain of 10% and also amenity space for residents, because amenity space for residents isn't calculated as part of a BNG figure. So you still have to accommodate suitable amount of planting on site to deliver biodiversity net gain whilst providing suitable living space for future residents.
Happy with that answer, Councillor Harding? Are there any further questions? No, can't see anybody's hand up. Well, thank you very much, Mr Hodgkins, for that presentation. Appreciate that. Okay, members, you've got the opportunity now to ask questions of the officers in respect to this application. Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Chairman. The Chairman of the Parish Council, Councillor Collison, seemed to me to make a very good case based upon the requirements of core strategy. Is it my understanding, however, that your recommendation is overwhelmingly dependent upon the impact of the Borden Hill decision? Is that correct or not?
More or less, yes. This would ordinarily meet with an objection in principle because it is outside. And if I may pull you up, Councillor, on your point about the built-up area boundary, strictly speaking, Stockton doesn't have one because it's in the SAP, the Site Allocations Plan, which is yet to be adopted. So here we are looking at the physical confines test. Point remains, it's outside the physical confines as well. But to return to your question, yes, ordinarily, if we had a 5-year housing land supply, we wouldn't have such a pressing need for houses that we would be obliged to grant permission for houses outside the physical confines.
Can I just retort by saying I read built-up area boundary mentioned in the report?
Draft built-up area boundary.
Thank you. Thanks very much for that. Just before you pick up on that, Paul, could you just help us understand what happens if this PIP were to be granted? What happens to the physical confines of Stockton? So members might be a bit confused as to how important this potential draft line is, and what happens when a development is granted that's outside that physical confines.
Well, the draft built-up area boundary, as I say, is contained in the Site Allocations Plan, which is some way off adoption. It's likely to be superseded by the South Warwickshire Local Plan in due course, which may include built-up area boundaries. In terms of the physical confines, if we were to then receive, hypothetically, an application for an adjacent field, that would still be outside the physical confines. It would affect that assessment because it's obviously built development on presumably at least one side of that field. But nevertheless, I think we would still say that the physical confines test would still find that a site that isn't actually within Stockton, as you would understand it as a layperson, would still be outside the physical confines.
Okay, Paul, thank you for that. Presumably, if this site were to be granted, it would then fall within the physical confines itself?
No, it probably wouldn't fall into the physical confines because there's a few things to add to this. Although the site's allocation plan is limited in weight because it's at regulation 18 stage, it still is a material planning consideration. So the SAP that proposes the built-up area boundaries is a starting point for officers as to what is the physical confines. So that would come into the assessment. The site then itself eventually would come into the physical confines, but the way it's positioned outside, anything adjacent to it or near it would, in all likelihood, still be deemed to be outside the physical confines of the settlement.
Thank you for that. I don't want to stray too far off the path. Councillor Scorer.
Thank you, Chair. I think I know the answer, but I just wanted to double check whether I didn't realise Stockton was in a green belt, that was all, because in third-party representation it is cited within a green belt. I think they mean open countryside. I just wanted to check.
You bang on, Councillor. Yeah, it's open country. The nearest green belt is to the side of Stratford.
Thank you, Councillor. Further questions? Councillor Fleming first, and then I have another one over here. Councillor Harding after.
Might be a two-part question. Just a simple explanation for people like me. If this hadn't been, if we had the 5-year housing land supply, would this development been considered with grant, or would it have been refused? So is this purely because we now no longer have a 5-year housing land supply?
I think I can probably best answer that, Councillor, by saying that we've got to determine the application that's in front of us. I get where your question's coming from.
Yeah.
And I think what I've said in my report is basically the fact that we don't have a 5-year housing land supply completely skews the assessment.
Yeah. Okay. Second part of the question, please. This is outside this mythical built-up area boundary. So this is now built outside that boundary. What's to say in 6 months, 9 months' time, same developer comes back and says, well, this is now the new built-up area boundary. Can we build in the next field along? How are we fixed? We're looking at that from that supply, that particular point.
In all honesty, Councillor, we can't answer that question simply because you would have to determine the application when it came in at that time. I think Paul, in fairness, sets it out quite well in his report. He acknowledges that it's not in accordance with the relevant policies of AS10, CS15, 16. But the issue being is at this moment in time, we do have a deficit on the 5-year land supply. If there is another application that comes in that is adjacent to Stockton, that would have to be assessed at that time. If we still have such a significant supply, there is a possibility that the recommendation may be granted. It would have to be assessed on the merits at that time.
Okay, thank you. It just shows the vulnerability of small villages. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Harding.
Thank you. Taking up Councillor Collison's point about if this has to go ahead, and they appreciate there is a tilted balance being applied here because of the land supply, could some of these be affordable housing? Am I right in thinking that if you built 10 houses, one of those would have to be affordable?
So the first thing to say is, yes, you'd ordinarily be required to deliver on-site provision once you get above 10, so 11 or more. And to respond to the parish councillor's point, there isn't anything to say that off-site provision has to be well off-site in another village. It can still be provided on another site in or near Stockton. And I think the other thing to say, possibly the most important thing to say, is that we can't assess that at this stage anyway. It's not part of the PIP considerations that we can bring to bear.
Okay, Councillor Harding. Any further questions? Councillor Passingham.
Yeah, in the conclusion, you say that the adverse impacts that need to be significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits. And Councillor Crump, in his objection, has listed some points there, and which include the housing mix and the community involvement, lack of sustainability and so on. Is there any criteria that you've judged what is demonstrably outweighing the benefits?
Yeah, I've basically listed the harms and benefits in the report and tried to weigh them up. Some of the things that Councillor Crump mentions in his response, I mean, community consultation is always a good idea. It's not a material consideration in terms of whether we grant or refuse permission. And the other factors he raises, affordable housing, lack of detail, primary school places, they're all for the technical details consent. They're not matters for the PIP. Housing mix, likewise. So, of the 6 points he's raised, the location outside the BUAB is essentially the only one that we're looking at this stage. And as I say in the report, the harm of that doesn't significantly and demonstrably outweigh the pressing need for housing.
Thank you. Well, Paul, could I ask a follow-up question to that in respect of the technical details consent? That presumably is a matter that doesn't come to committee. That's a matter that's delegated to officers process, is it?
No, it could end up a committee because you are dealing with all the technical details, such as highways, design, layout. The best way to do it for a PIP standpoint is actually kind of look at it as an outline application, in that you've got the principle is deemed acceptable. Therefore, if there's issues on highways and various things that may be raised from obviously the ward member or the parish council or even the community as a whole, it does have the chance to then come back to committee if they still feel it doesn't meet it.
So the parish council, the ward member and residents have the opportunity to consult and comment on the technical details consent element of this as a next stage. And are you saying that there's a possibility that if there is some of the things put forward are objected to, that those decisions could come back in front of a planning committee?
Absolutely. I think what you have to be mindful here is, as Paul's highlighted a number of times, permission in principle. So if members are concerned over matters, they need to demonstrate or be convinced that the issues arise makes this site and it is just not acceptable in location. So the sorts of design aspects, landscaping aspects and so forth will be a technical details matter. But if the harm was so great, and given the 5-year land supply, it has to be to a level that is demonstrable, then that is the level that we need to assess it at.
All right, thanks for that, Joe. Any further questions? Someone's going to just flick their hand up when I'm not looking at them, aren't they? No? Good. Okay. Right, well, thank you for that. So we've heard from the objectors, you've heard from the agent, you've heard from the case officer who would like to kick off a discussion on this particular application. Councillor Parry, please.
Thank you, Chair. A very clear report, and I think we just have to be mindful this is a PIP that is in front of us, not an outline planning with all the technical details, etc. And I take all the points raised by the parish council, but unfortunately the core strategy is no longer sound because we no longer have a 5-year housing land supply. And therefore, having considered all the options and the officer's report, I therefore propose we go with the officer's recommendation of grant due to the lack of the 5-year housing land supply. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Parry. Just a point of clarification, there are no conditions attached to that recommendation, Joe?
It's a permission in principle, so at this stage you can't put any conditions or obligations against the permission in principle. Just
to be clear, so everyone understands. Councillor Harvey.
Second.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak? No? Okay, well I agree with Councillor Parry that it's a very good report and it certainly set out, for me anyway, the rationale for the recommendation. Unfortunately, we're in a difficult position with the housing land supply, but nevertheless, we have a proposal from Councillor Parry, seconded by Councillor Harvey. I'd like to take that to a vote, please. So that's a proposal to follow the officer's recommendation and resolve to grant application, I should just read it out, 2502294 PIP. Could I have a show of cards in favour, please?
Unanimous.
Thank you, everybody. So that's council or committee has resolved, in which case to grant 2502294 PIP land to the west of Knapton Road, Stockton. Thank you all, and thank you very much for your presentations, those that came forward to do that. Okay, so right, so we'll move on to the next item on the. Thank you, members. Thank you. So we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. It's application 2501653 FUL. That's Grey Cedars, 6 Beaches Walk, Tiddington, Stratford-on-Avon, for a 2-storey rear extension and other items there. Paul, you're presenting again, so when you're ready, if you'd like to take us through this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Now, I wasn't the case officer for this one, but I shall do my level best to talk you through it. We are in Tiddington, just outside Stratford. There we go. In a row of detached houses set back from the Tiddington Road. We're looking at number 6 Beaches Walk, and proposed is a loft conversion, some extensions, first floor extensions to the rear, and a large single-storey rear extension. You can see the existing proposed block plan here. Here we see the existing rear elevation, well, the existing elevations, all 4, and the proposed front and side elevations, rear elevations with, and this will become more relevant as we go through the presentation. You can see some lines there which show the 25-degree test. They accompany the 45-degree test, which you can see here, actually, sorry. It's the purple lines there. 45 and 25-degree tests are taken in tandem, and they're how we work out whether a neighbour will be losing daylight to habitable rooms. Moving on, here's the existing street scene as it stands, with a sort of average ridge height shown in the dashed line. There is the proposed street scene, again, ridge heights shown, difference from the mean on the dashed line. And this is what it looks like in Technicolor. As you can see, it's set back slightly from the road on a private cul-de-sac. This is the front elevation, rear elevation, showing a view towards neighbouring property. This is the neighbouring property, view back towards the application site. This is the neighbours on the other side. This is the conservatory, from which a lot of these 45 and 25 degree lines are being drawn, or strictly speaking, the first floor window above the conservatory and the, if my pointer is showing there, the French doors inside the conservatory. These are the windows we're looking at. This shows these photos show the street scene in a bit more breadth, again showing the sort of varied ridge line and eclectic, shall we say, designs and forms of the development there, and further views thereof. Even further views. My colleague has really gone to town on the photographs, which is to her credit. The recommendation, Chair, is to grant permission on the grounds that although there is an infringement of the 25-degree rule, there isn't an infringement of the 45-degree rule. And thus the impact on the neighbours was considered acceptable. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Paul. Okay, so we have some speakers and I think the neighbours as well. So if I could first of all call up Robert Cobley and Sarah Cobley, please. And I'm guessing that, yeah, you are the neighbours that live in the house most affected by the proposal. Would that be right? Sorry? Oh, your father lives there. Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon. It's the right-hand button and the microphone will come on. Yeah. So I don't. What I've got here is that you are here to answer questions, but have you got something pre-prepared?
I do, yes.
Oh, super. Yes. Okay, super.
And some slides as well, actually. I think if we could.
Right. Okay. So let's just get that organised. All right, Paul. Okay, so you've got 3 minutes to...
Would you be able to let me know when I've got 30 seconds left or something?
Yeah, I'll just give you a little wave.
I'll just say next slide if that's okay.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, thank you.
Right. Committee, I'm speaking for my father who lives next door to Grey Cedars at number 5. We're asking you to refuse or defer this application because the massive increase in size, height and impact means it remains too large, too tall and too harmful to my father's living conditions. On character and scale, this is a small close of 8 houses on narrow plots with harmonious 2-storey character, not taller properties further away. This isn't a loft conversion. It creates a 3-storey house amongst 2-storey neighbours with a massive 1.64 metre height increase above our ridgeline, increased roof pitch, and huge 2-storey extension protruding over 3 metres. Next slide, please. This disproportionate development would appear noticeably bulkier and more dominant than its neighbours, breaching policies on scale and surroundings. Next slide, please. The officer accepts that both 45-degree and 25-degree tests are breached, but dismisses this as minor. In reality, these are major failures, made worse by offset houses, with rules calculated from different reference points in different plans, and excluding our conservatory, the most affected room. Slide, please. Crucially, my father's bedroom receives all light from the conservatory, block 1, and you block both. The officer claims the significant 13.7 deep extension is around 1.8 metres from our boundary. It's actually, at most, 1.25 metres. If this basic measurement is wrong, what else is wrong? Even with our hedge, a significant length of brick wall and skylights will be visible over 50 centimetres above the hedgerow, creating a long, high wall dominating our garden space. Slide, please. With Grey Cedars to the east, the increased ridge height and rear projection would block sunlight, creating a dark, enclosed environment. Slide, please. The planner, when coming on site, declined to look from the window. If she had, she'd see the bedroom would be in darkness most of the day. Committee, you must visit the site to see the real impact. Why build a conservatory and patio if they'll be in permanent shadow? The failure of the rules will devastate light to all our main living spaces. Can I skip a slide and go to slide 8, please? The submitted plans contain fundamental measurement errors and crucial omissions. Existing eaves drawn at 4.68, but labelled at 6.8, actually 4.85. The existing ridge height is drawn at 7.25, but not labelled. Mr. Williams confirmed it's 7.45. The new eaves height is labelled at 5.1 and 5.88 on the same plan. The existing ridge height is not drawn at all on the new plans. There's no plan showing the bounding detail, and number 5 is drawn higher than it actually is, with windows shown taller than they actually are. You cannot approve development with such fundamental inaccuracies. Even the officer's report contains different measurements from submitted plans. The measurements are wrong, the assessments are flawed, and it's impossible to understand the true impact. This isn't fair on either side. You're being asked to make decisions on unverifiable information that conflicts with your own policies. The application harms both the character of Beecher's Walk and our living conditions.
That's coming up to time. If you could just wrap up now with the final paragraph. Thank you.
I urge you to refuse it or defer until accurate, verifiable information is provided. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Cobley. Members, do we have any questions, please? Councillor Eden.
Good evening. I just wondered if you could explain to members what the main use of the conservatory is during the day or night or what have you.
So my dad uses it for reading his newspaper. We use it for Christmas, for family get-togethers at the weekend. It's used pretty much every day.
Right. I wondered if I could ask a question. Paul, if you could flick back a couple of slides to the photograph that shows the conservatory and the hedge. I should just like to appreciate from that photograph which direction the sunshine comes in to that room from, because I think in your submission that you said your father's bedroom is the downstairs bedroom at the back of the conservatory. Can you just help me understand, because that's quite a tall hedge, and I'm just wondering which way the sunlight comes round and whether the conservatory is in the sun for some of the day, all of the day, or none of the day.
I guess it depends on the time of year, but generally in the summer we get the sun pretty much all of the afternoon into the evening. The river is at the bottom of the garden, that's going from west to east, and the house is facing sort of northeast to the rear.
Okay.
So we get the sun in the morning coming round from the front of the house through the gap between the two houses and then down over behind the hedge. And the height obviously depends on the time of year.
Yeah, I understand that, yeah. So I suppose what I'm thinking is that there's already quite a big hedge there, quite a high hedge that would probably affect the sunlight when the sun is lower.
I don't think the hedge, personally, from having lived with my father, affects the sun until it gets really low in the summer months. So in the afternoon, I don't think it does. Okay,
that's fine. Well, because we can ask the officers for more detail in a minute. So thank you for that. Councillor Parry, please.
Thank you, and good evening. Thank you for your presentation. You highlighted there were some discrepancies in the planning portal measurements and the officer's report. Could you possibly just give a little bit more information about that and what the differentials are, please?
There's quite a lot. So our house is depicted incorrectly, so it's of the wrong height. The window heights are also incorrectly depicted, which has an effect on the 25-degree rule. The existing eaves height, so I spoke to Mr. Williams previously, and he's given me a couple of measurements. The existing ridge height is, we think, 7.45 metres, but it's not actually marked. When you measure the plans, it's 7.25 metres from ground floor level. From external ground level, it's 7.35. The new eaves height is marked at 5.1 metres on one plan and 5.88 metres on another plan on the same page. We're not sure what it is. Bear with me a second, sorry.
Don't worry too much.
I've got loads of measurements.
No, you've just highlighted there are some discrepancies.
I guess the other thing to mention is that in the planner's report it says the distance between Grey Cedars extension and the boundary is 1.8 metres, but it just can't be. The existing end wall of Grey Cedars is 20 centimetres from the boundary, and they're stepping in the ground floor extension by 1 metre. So if that distance is wrong, that pretty much every other distance you have to question.
I think we'll be able to ask the case officer for a detailed look at the plans just to understand that. Any further questions? Yes, Councillor Harvey.
Thank you very much. It's another question about measurements, I'm afraid. The report maintains that the ridge height will go from 7.4 to 8.9 is one fact. Another fact that we're presented with is that number 1 has a height of 8.9 already. Have you got any comments about the accuracy of those two particular figures, the projected height and the existing height of number 1?
I don't know the height of number 1, unfortunately, so I can't comment on that. We do know that other neighbours have commented and said that they believe they're inaccurate, but I couldn't tell you whether that's actually the case or not.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No? Okay, in which case, thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you. So our next speaker is Mr. Dan Williams, who's the applicant. So hello, good evening, Mr. Williams. Come forward, thank you. So in the same vein, if you press the right-hand button of the 2 silver buttons, that's it, super. And you have 3 minutes, and I shall give you a bit of a heads up when you're approaching that. So if you'd like to tell us about your application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Chair and members. My name is Dan Williams. I live at Grey Cedars on Beeches Walk. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. This application is about creating a safe, suitable home for my elderly parents who both live with ongoing health conditions. Our aim is simply to adapt our property so that 3 generations of our family can live together and support one another in a practical and dignified way. From the onset, we have engaged with the planning process responsibly. We've used qualified planning professionals, architects and ecological specialists, supplied every required survey, including BAT and archaeological reports, and responded promptly to all requests from the planning officer. We have also revised the design significantly to address neighbour concerns, even though those changes reduced our internal space and increased our costs. I would like to say I'm generally grateful for the professionalism and impartiality shown by the planning officer throughout this application. Given the strength of feeling in parts of the community and clearly coordinated nature of some of the objections, it's been reassuring to see the assessment remain firmly grounded in policy, evidence and planning judgment alone. The officer's report concludes that the proposal is acceptable in planning terms. It confirms that the scale and design are modest and proportionate, and the footprint represents less than 10% of a 25,000 square foot plot, entirely in keeping with the character and pattern of development along Beeches Walk. The roof form materials and overall appearance have been carefully chosen to sit comfortably within the street scene. The proposal will also allow us to bring the house up to modern standards of safety and energy performance. Grey Cedars currently has poor insulation, faulty and outdated services and low EPC rating. The scheme gives us a rare opportunity to resolve those issues fully and future-proof the property in line with local and national sustainability aims. I appreciate that some objections have been raised. However, as the officer sets out, these concerns do not amount to demonstrable planning harm. Many are based on misunderstandings or subjective interpretations rather than conflicts with policy, and I'm grateful that the report makes this distinction clearly. Throughout this process, my family and I have acted openly, respectfully and in good faith. We simply ask the committee considers the application on its planning merits as set out thoroughly and professionally in the officer's recommendation. This proposal would cause no material harm, will significantly improve the sustainability and safety of the property and provide a secure long-term home for my parents and my family. I respectfully ask members to uphold the officer's clear and professional recommendation and allow us to move forward with our proposal that is policy compliant, proportionate and genuinely essential for the well-being of my family. Thank you for your time and considering our application fairly and objectively.
Thank you very much, Mr. Williams. Okay, members, here's an opportunity to ask Mr. Williams questions about his proposal. No? Well, I've got a question for you. I'll start off, Mr. Williams. Obviously, you've just heard some objections in respect to some of the measurements that have been provided.
Yes.
How would you respond to those? Do you feel that there are still some gaps in that information?
Personally, I don't believe there are. I know that there has been some gaps. I get used to asking people to do things for me and it being done not quite right, sort of thing. I have pulled the architect up on this a couple of times. We've discussed it. But as far as I'm concerned, the most recent plans that have gone in, correct.
Okay, and could you just for the benefit of the members, just explain how you've modified your proposals through the process of making the application? I think you mentioned that you'd already made some changes.
So it was quite a lot. We'd aim for what would be perfect for us as a family, perhaps a little bit high, you know. We had a first and second floor front extension. We removed that completely, so that was a spare bedroom for my parents, and then a big bedroom with a ensuite for my stepdaughter, sort of thing. We've got rid of the boxed-in section at the front of the building because the neighbours were saying that that was going to create a problem with light for them. We've moved the first floor rear extension across to the middle a bit more. We brought the sides of the extension in, so it's away from the boundary a bit more. The original proposal had a gable, so it had a gable. The existing house has a hip roof. Now, when the architect drew it in the first instance, he had put in a gable. Now, when I went round to see the neighbours, they pointed out what a difference that was going to make. And immediately I could see that. I could see that, yeah, absolutely, 100%. That's going to change straight away. I worked with the architect and the architect and my planning consultant, and we came up with a plan to try and give us what we need, but try and ensure we're thinking about the neighbours as well.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that, Mr. Williams. It's important that you get your side of the story across in respect of what you've done with the development proposals. Any further questions for Mr. Williams? Doesn't look like it. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Williams.
Thank you.
Okay, our final speaker on this item is Councillor Rolfe. Good evening, Councillor Rolfe. Welcome to Planning Committee. Yeah, you've got 5 minutes to present on this application. Yeah, I don't see why not. Thank you. So it's 5 minutes, so I shall just give you a 30-second warning as we approach the 5 minutes. Okay, so whenever you're ready. Have you got any photographs as well or not? No?
Nope.
Okay, thank you. When you're ready.
Committee, I suggest to you that some of the measurements do not correspond with what is on the planning portal, and there are a number of discrepancies, as you have already heard. I believe there is the wrong height of the eaves of existing property. It's actually 4.65 metres, but is annotated at 6.8 metres. There are 2 different new eaves measurements on the proposal. One says 5.1, one says 5.88. The height of Touchwood, the house next door, is drawn at a higher height than it actually is. The actual height is 7.16 and is lower than Grey Cedars. All these measurements have been corroborated by an independent architect. Another anomaly is on the exterior, where the planner has stated the gap between the extension of the proposal and the eastern boundary is 1.8 metres. At the most, it's 1.2 metres. For this reason, there is a huge discrepancy with the 25-degree and the 45-degree rules. As you can see in the pictures Mr. Cobley showed, there will be a huge loss of light to the master bedroom. The planner even states in her report that the proposed development contravenes the 45-degree test. The planner also states that there is a minor infringement of the 25-degree rule. Even if the measurements are accurate, a minor infringement is a huge loss of light to the family who live in Touchwood. This will be with them forever. In my opinion, because of the inaccuracies of the measurements, the 25-degree is not minor, but quite major and needs to be looked at again. Remember, committee, the master bedroom sits behind the conservatory, which is its only source of light. If this increase in height and length of building goes ahead, it will seriously compromise the light to the master bedroom. This bedroom has full-length double-glazed patio doors and full-height windows to either side of the patio doors, looking out onto the conservatory. The bedroom's only source of light, as the front window, is very small. In planning terms, the conservatory is not considered a habitable room, but in this case, it is an integral and hugely important room, bringing light to the master habitable room. The planner was invited to look from the bedroom double window, but declined. which is unfortunate because it is clear when standing with your back to these glass double doors, the bedroom will be put into darkness most of the day, with the increase of height by 1.5 metres, and pitch and two-storey rear extension with ridge height of over 7 metres, protruding over 3 metres from the existing boundary. Most people build conservatories in order to spend time with light and sun streaming in, so making a comfortable, relaxing room to sit in. If this proposal were to go ahead, Mr. Cobley might as well not have this conservatory, as for most of the day there will be no natural sunlight coming in. In fact, if this conservatory wasn't there now, then this proposal would definitely be up for refusal, as it would take all the light from the master bedroom. I would strongly suggest that this is deferred until correct measurements are in place and the 25 and 45 degree rule is defined. I'm sure that if the revised measurements stated above and submitted plans are accurate, the planner would have a very different opinion. The hedge belonging to the property Touchwood is a well-established, tall and very healthy hedge running the length of the side of the property to the bottom of the garden. It has nesting birds and much wildlife, and it sits extremely close to the boundary of this proposed extension. There is a huge risk to the longevity of this hedge if you were minded to approve. This hedge has been there for over 60 years, and any damage during construction will take away all those years of privacy and screening from the house next door. This hedge must be protected. One further point in the report, it states that there will be a loft conversion incorporating raising the ridge height of the property by 1.5 metres. But in real terms, this is creating a 3-storey house amongst all the other houses in Beaches Walk, which are 2-storey. So yes, it is also out of character with the street scene. These details shouldn't be overlooked. By creating a 3-storey house, it is setting a precedent. If you are minded to approve this application, even the builder won't know what he or she is meant to be building because of the inaccurate measurements. This application as it stands must be either deferred due to inaccuracies in measurements and contraventions of the 25 degree and 45 degree rule, or refused for these exact same reasons. Thank you.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, you've got 20 seconds left. Do you wish to use it?
I will use it. The applicant did say that he made amendments, but he actually made the ridge height higher after the amendments. It's just a point of clarification. He actually made the ridge height higher in order to allow for room for his parents. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rolfe. Thanks very much. Right, members, do we have any questions for Councillor Rolfe, please? No, okay, I'm looking round. Indicate if you have any, please, because you know that I can't spot you very easily. I've got one for you, please, Councillor Rolfe. In your presentation, you said, if the conservatory was not there, this development would take all light off the master bedroom, meaning the room that's in there. I can't really understand what the difference would be, because the test on the light is taken from the windows of that room, not from the windows of the conservatory, isn't it?
It is, but it would be, if the conservatory didn't exist, it would be much easier to look at the 25 and the 45 degree rule, because you'll see the windows there and you'll see that the proposed extension to the house next door would actually take all the light away. It's quite deceptive because there is a conservatory in front.
Right, okay. I mean, we'll test that out with the case officers, but my understanding was the rule comes from the original windows, so it would be the same whether the conservatory were there or not. But
may I just follow up to that, if I may, Chair? The planner did not go inside and measure from that window.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, but I think they've done it from the plans, haven't they? So they've got the details.
But the plans are inaccurate in terms of measurements. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. So we've got an opportunity. Further questions? If no further questions, thank you very much indeed for coming along to present on this. So members got the opportunity to ask questions of the case officer now. I think. Am I right? Have I missed somebody? So it's all right, because normally when you all mutter like that, I failed to invite somebody up to speak. Who would like to start? Then Councillor Parry, would you like to start?
Well, unless somebody else would like to start, more than happy. I would really welcome the case officer to give some explanation. It has already been declared that there are discrepancies in the measurements between the planning portal and in the report. Number one, I think we need to have confirmation whether there is a discrepancy. And part two is, if there is a discrepancy, what impact would that have? Is it a significant consideration in material planning consideration terms?
I suppose the question is which measurement or which discrepancies in particular are we being asked about?
They made reference to the ridge heights of both the properties, and also the boundary, the distance to the boundary, where the boundary is and where the extensions go to.
You also, Paul, you just heard Councillor Rolfe explain that because the measurements are wrong, the 25-degree test might be different because the measurements that are shown on the plans don't seem to, they're not properly validated.
Well, this was going to be what I was going to go on to say. First of all, we're looking at, okay, which are there differences between the plans and the report? And then also there's what's being questioned is the difference between the plans and the report and reality. And that second question might be harder to answer since we don't have an objective measure. Nobody's gone out there with a laser, or at least nobody from the council has gone out there with a laser to independently verify any of these measurements.
I suppose, can I ask a first question then? I mean, that's fair enough what you said. You know, are there differences between the measurements and what's shown in the report? Actually, what we think that we've heard is that there are differences in the measurements shown on the plans within the application.
I think the general point I'd make is that we would be, if permission were granted, it would be granting permission for what's on the plans. If that can't be built because the plans are inaccurate as to what's there already, or they show a contradictory development, well then the onus is on the applicant to provide plans that don't have that problem. If they were to build something that differs from the plans, that would be an enforcement matter. On the point of the distance from the boundary line, for example, Joe and I have just been taking a look at this. Unfortunately, at the scale it's drawn at, the boundary line is quite thick, so the variation between, or the variance between the minimum possible distance and the maximum possible distance is quite large, probably on the order of about, what would you say, Joe, 0.6 of a metre, something like that, which could well account for the discrepancy there. I think that's 1.2 to 1.8 metres, as the case may be. So I think there may be elements of scaling inaccuracies that are causing this difference of opinion.
I think I need to add to this, in fairness to Paul. Paul wasn't the case officer, so the case officer unfortunately couldn't come here tonight, so that's why Paul's struggling with some of the questions, and rightly so, because they're hard questions. On top of that, we don't have anything to wrongly suggest that Louise, who was the case officer, has done an inaccurate assessment based on the plans that have been submitted. Her report sets out her findings and the plans, and Paul is absolutely correct that if on-site is different, and the developer, actually, Councillor Rolfe even made the point that the builder won't know what they're building. Well, if they don't know what they're building, they can't build it. It will be an enforcement issue. The plans is on the onus of the applicant to ensure they are submitted correctly. It is then for the case officer to go off those plans. If they are incorrect, then what you are granting is can't be built. Now, that's not the end. There is other issues and enforcement and stuff, but fundamentally at the planning application stage, That is what the case officer has to do.
Yeah, thank you for that, Joe. I think what I would add for the benefit of members is that when it comes to granting an application and an application like this being built out, the plans are what defines what's generally built. So if there was a difference between the plans and what is built, one might say that might require enforcement action if it was if it made a big difference. I think what we're hearing from the objectors is that these dimensions are kind of quite finely balanced in respect of the impact they're having on their house. So if there's any doubt at all about the accuracy of the plans, or like the thickness of the lines, for example, could make a big difference when it comes to building out. Would that be right?
It could be right.
Unless there are dimensions specifically shown that show the distance from like a wall to a boundary, and it's actually dimensioned on the plan.
Yeah, it could be. It's whether members were mindful that the differences are to such an extent, or they're satisfied that actually there is such discrepancies that at this moment in time, the accuracy of the application is in question. Therefore, they need to either refuse or defer the application. If they are convinced by that, then by all means, that is the right way to go about it.
Anybody else like to ask a question of the case officers? Trevor?
No, I'd like to get on and have the debate.
Thank you for that. Have you got a question? Well, I thought Councillor Harvey had a question. I wasn't expecting that response from Councillor Harvey. Councillor Fleming.
Couple of three things. If they build the house to the plans which aren't correct, and you say there'll be an enforcement action, we all know how that stops. They put in a variation and nothing happens from that perspective. That's from my experience of being on this committee for quite a few years. The first real question is 148 square metres for the new extension. Is that to the correct measurements or is that to the wrong measurements? Because what I then will need to ask is, what is the square meterage of the existing house and how much does that increase it by? Because we've had several things over the last few months. Oh, it's got to be 30%, it's got to be 25%. Where are we with this extension compared to the original building?
Firstly, Councillor, I have to highlight, because it sounds like you've made up your minds, there is discrepancy in the plans, so you need to be careful on that. So if you are satisfied they are the wrong plans, then there could be an issue. Secondly, on the questions regarding the percentage-wise, well, Louise has took them off these plans. So that's almost impossible for me to answer because it's set out in Louise's report, what she has found. In respect to percentage, this is a different assessment where it's in the green belt where the percentage requirements are sort of done. So in all honesty, the assessment for along Tiddington Road and even Stratford in general is on the basis of the character of the area, impact on neighbouring amenities and so forth. So the percentage criteria wouldn't, it's a material consideration, but it wouldn't amount to too much in the assessment. It's very much, do you think there is a significant impact on the residents nearby? Does it affect the character of the area? Is there a harmful impact overall? You may well find that. That's not me saying one way or the other, but that is the assessment.
Thanks for your answer. Thank you.
Any further questions to the case officer? Councillor Parry.
Thank you, Chair. If the committee is minded to defer this application, do we have sufficient material planning reasons to go down the deferral route because of the discrepancies raised in the measurements?
Can I just have a quick chat with legal over something with that, please? Sorry about that. The reason for the discussion is the plans as submitted by the applicant is their survey plans. Before me and in the application file, I can find no reason to say there was another drawn set of plans or survey plans done that would differentiate or evidence that those plans were so sufficiently incorrect. So if you were deferring it, I can't really give a sufficient reason for deferral, because what we were doing is basically asking the applicant to then resubmit the same plans and to confirm what they are. We can't really do that. The onus isn't on us to do it, because that's what the applicant's been submitted. It then brings us back in a circle to enforcement matters and so forth. Sorry, Councillor, by all means, just let me finish and then I'll do it. You do have the right, if you think that the plans are inaccurate or there is insufficient information, to refuse it on the basis of insufficient information. I don't think, given the conversations we've had, you do need to be satisfied. I was just coming on to that, sorry. You do need to be satisfied that those reasons are material planning reasons. So if the plans are so inaccurate and the material considerations are like harmful impacts on the neighbours and so forth, then you do have a basis for a refusal, because that is a material planning consideration. But you must be mindful that you must be satisfied that there is sufficient evidence that those plans are inaccurate.
And I think, just to add, sufficient evidence, all we've heard so far is anecdotal evidence from objections. So, Councillor Parry.
Is there any opportunity for us to defer for a site visit?
I think you could
so that we could look at the direction of the sun with, you know, and just check us on that. Would a deferral for the benefit of a site visit, would that be an option?
You certainly have the option to defer for a site visit on material planning considerations. In fairness, what you've just highlighted about the sun would be a material planning consideration, because it's light that's impacted on the neighbours. You could also defer it, I don't want to lead here by any stretch, but as long as it's material planning considerations, you could defer it on the basis of what is there compared to what is existing. What I have to be mindful to members is that that wouldn't change the fact as the plans that have been submitted.
Okay, Councillor Parry.
Thank you. I'm happy with that.
Yeah,
what
thank
you've
you.
said.
Okay. Anybody else like to ask a question of the case officers? No, it looks like we're done. In which case we can move on to the debate about this application, and I think Councillor Harvey would like to start.
Thank you, Chairman. This is perhaps as difficult an application as we've had for a long time. I'm very sympathetic to both parties, both neighbours, particularly as somebody in advanced years. I'm sympathetic to their intentions to look after their elderly parents to the best of their ability. I propose that we defer this application. And my reasons for that are that we should only make a decision one way or another on the basis of sound information. I think enough mud has been thrown to cause doubts, at least in my mind, that we have all the confidence that we need in the information that we are presented with in order to come to a decision. There's also a question for me, and it's probably not a planning issue per se, but it's a question of fairness. Here we have a disputed application, and whichever way the decision goes, to grant or not to grant, or to defer, the applicants and those affected by the application are entitled to feel that they have been dealt with in a fair way. Currently, perhaps I'm just not as bright and sharp on the uptake as I need to be, but I don't think I certainly can't opine between the two different points of view about which measurement is correct or not. It is always easy for an objector to make an assertion to cast doubt. In this instance, whether it's true or not, it is our responsibility, the Chairman's already pointed it out, that we can only make a decision based upon facts as presented to us as firm facts. And those firm facts, in my view, have to be presented by the case officer. I think there is enough doubt in this application that I would feel very, well, I won't make a decision to grant or to refuse based upon what I know now and the condition my mind is in on the relevant facts. I'm not saying that there are grounds for refusal. I'm not saying there is automatically a case for accepting the officer's recommendation to grant. I think what we need, maybe a site visit could help in determining our minds about the impact of light and shade and so on. But for me, I can only make a decision on this application when I know for certain that all the parties involved and affected accept that the measurements that the application involves are accepted by all and sundry. And on that basis, I don't have that certainty, and I don't think they do either. And on that basis, there is sufficient doubt for me to say, I think we need to firmly establish the facts and then deal with the matter. We're not in that position now, and that's why I propose that we defer.
Okay, Councillor Harvey, thanks very much for that. I think, just summarising back to what you said, is that there's some doubt in your mind as to the impact of this development that is in front of us, with the plans that we have in front of us, with the measurements on those plans we have in front of us, but there is some doubt in your mind as to the impact that that development would have on the light of the neighbours and their amenity, and for that reason you think we should go and have a look on site and defer for a site visit. So, Councillor...
Can I just... That's not far from a good summary, but the implication is that, for me, I would want the case officer to come back at a future date and say, these measurements are the measurements and they are correct, and you can make your decision based upon these measurements. They've been accepted by all relevant parties as being accurate.
Well, okay, but I think what I've heard from the case officer that's presenting is that, as far as he is concerned, the applicant's measurements are right and his plans are right. We haven't had any plans from anyone else. So we're not going to get plans from objectors. We have to go forward with the plans that are provided by the applicant. What we need to do, if we're deferring, is to defer on the basis of a material planning consideration, and that consideration will be the loss of light and the amenity on the neighbour. Councillor Parry.
Thank you, Chair. I think we all need to be reminded why we're here. We all, sitting around this table in this chamber, we make life-changing decisions here. When we haven't got all the information in front of us, it makes it extremely difficult to make a life-changing decision for the applicant or the neighbours. I do feel a site visit would be extremely helpful with the case officer present to look again, and also to check that those measurements on the planning portal correspond to the measurements in the report. So I'm very happy to second Councillor Harvey's proposal to defer for a site visit and re-clarification of the measurements. Thank you.
Well, yeah, okay, but the case officer's already presented the case and made a recommendation to grant based upon what the case officer's seen. So it would be for us as members to go to site, to defer, to go to site, to satisfy ourselves about this issue of amenity impact and loss of light. So if that's Councillor Harvey's proposal, you're seconding it. Would anybody else like to? Okay with that, Councillor Harvey? Yes. Yeah. Okay, and anybody else like to speak? Councillor Fleming.
As a former engineer, I work on facts, and I'm not really sure I trust the facts that are being put in front of us because of the differences in these figures. So, like Trevor says, we make decisions based on factual information. We've got factual information. I'm not going to say we don't trust it, but we're not confident in it. So from that perspective, I would go along with the proposers to defer till we find that information out.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Fleming. And I think what you're feeling is that because you've heard objectors raising questions about the validity or the accuracy of some of the data, you've been swayed by that. What I got to tell you is that in front of us is the applicant's plan and the applicant's measurements. But the objectors have suggested there might be some concerns about that. Would anybody else like to speak on this? No, in which case, Councillor Passingham.
Surely a lot depends on the accuracy of the dimensions of the neighbouring house in terms of the heights and the distance from the boundary and the distance between the two houses. Should that be determined by a proper surveyor to have, if we were going to have accurate dimension?
Well, I think that we're past the point of questioning the case officers about that, but as my understanding is that the plans show the house and the neighbouring house, and that's the application detail that we have to work with. What you've heard is objectors suggesting that they dispute that, but what's in front of us is the applicant's data. Would you like to comment on that? I'll give you the opportunity, because what normally happens is you might, but not. Thank you. Right, okay, so I think I know where we're going. We have a proposal from Councillor Harvey to defer pending site visit by members to consider the material impact of this development on the loss of light and amenity of the neighbour. So that's Councillor Harvey's proposal, seconded by Councillor Parry. Could I have a show of cards, please, for that proposal in favour? Looks like we all are, because...
Unanimous.
Thank you. In which case, committee resolves to defer that application 25-01653 FUL pending a site visit of members. Do I need to say anything in addition to that? Amy? No? Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much for your presentations. The final item on the agenda is any other business or urgent business. I don't think we have any, in which case I can close the meeting. Thank you, everybody, for your participation.